Marvel fans, over the past week, I have watched the entirety, all 5 episodes of Echo. And now that I've had kind of a day or two to sit on it and really think about what I thought about the show, I'm going to give you guys my thoughts and kind of break down each episode and just give you guys the main points as well as my findings, my thoughts, and what I thought about the series overall. Before we get started, if you guys could hit that subscribe button, it would mean so much to me. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers. I never thought I'd even get close to that, but I guess we're already almost at 750. So if you guys could make my day by hitting that button and joining this awesome community. If you love talking about Marvel, Star Wars, anything like that, hit that button. You won't regret it. So let's talk about Echo. A lot of people said that the first episode was their favorite and is the strongest, but I kind of had the opposite effect. And the main reason for that is personally, I have watched Hawkeye. I know what happens in Hawkeye, but this is a part of the new Marvel Spotlight banner, so they're really going to try and contain this story in its own way, meaning you don't have to watch everything beforehand to know what's going on in Echo. You could go into this show not knowing anything prior, and I really appreciate that, but this whole first episode, I think half of it is kind of recapping what happens in Echo, but that's not too big of a problem for me. So I don't think it was the strongest episode like a lot of people are saying, but I do think it had a lot of great qualities, and I'm going to get into those now. I wasn't really expecting a supernatural element to this show. I thought Maya was going to be just a sort of Punisher-esque foot soldier figure. Then again, I'm not extremely well versed in her character from the comics, so it was nice to finally go into a Marvel character story that I didn't really know much about. Throughout all of these episodes, we're constantly getting these sort of psychedelic flashbacks to her past, to her what we find out to be relatives that sort of give her these echoing powers. And without jumping too far ahead, I really do like what they did in comparison to her counterpart in the comics, who basically has the same powers as Taskmaster. They did something completely different here, and I was a huge fan of that. Again, we're going to get into that later. But these flashbacks happen every single episode, and they happen consistently until the moment they're explained, and I do think that pacing was kind of weird. And I'm not saying that's the worst thing ever, but when I'm watching these flashbacks every single episode, sometimes multiple times in an episode, knowing that later down the line they're going to explain it, I don't need to see it all the time. Yes, they have to leave the sort of breadcrumb trail to show how she got her powers and what it means, but I was watching these visions and these flashbacks just being like, I know you're going to explain it later on, can you just tell me now? And while this show is only 5 episodes long, which in its own right is a strength and a weakness, I do think it could have benefited from maybe 1 or 2 more episodes, just kind of explaining more about her powers and her past in regards to her family. Now, to play devil's advocate to that, I do think having it being only 5 episodes kept it going for me. Were there some boring moments? Absolutely. But there were some great action scenes, and we're going to talk about one of those in the first episode right now. So we all know the story. Kingpin killed Maya's father, and Maya grew up as sort of Kingpin's niece. He trained her, made her his right hand, and just used her basically as an assassin. We see her go on one of her first missions as an assassin for Kingpin, and this is actually taking place during the blip, I believe, confirming that not only did Maya survive the blip, but so did Wilson Fisk, and so did Matt Murdock, Daredevil. We get a great one-shot fight between Daredevil and Maya in the first episode, and it was fantastic. It was great seeing Daredevil be more acrobatic from his Netflix counterpart, and we haven't even talked about the fact that all of the Netflix Daredevil shows, the Defender show, all of those series are now canon to the MCU. I made a video on it, go check it out. But this is how you do a cameo. This is an appearance from a very popular character and elevates the character that we're watching the show of even more. Their fight was intense, it was really good. Daredevil ends up kind of winning the fight and escaping, which obviously makes sense because Daredevil is a very seasoned fighter at this point, whereas Maya is sort of now learning the ropes. But Kingpin notices this and sees very, very much a future with Maya and her potential for being an assassin. Now we cut back to the future where we know what happens at the end of Hawkeye, where Maya ends up shooting Kingpin after finding out that he killed her father. She goes back to her home in Oklahoma and meets up with some of her family relatives, and in the past we find out that her mother died in a car accident because of, I think her father's car had the tires or the brakes cut, and Maya tragically loses her mom at a very young age. After this, her family kind of resents her dad, and now that her dad's dead, Maya hasn't seen her family in a very, very long time, and there's some tension there. I like how they took the time here with each family member and gave them some good dialogue scenes where we can actually meet and know the characters. There's plenty of scenes in this show that Maya is not even a part of, which is great because it feels like traditional television where you're not only getting one point of view, you're getting the point of view of many different characters. But that's kind of where episode 1 ends. Basically a retelling of Hawkeye, good for people who haven't watched Hawkeye or the people who don't remember what happened in the show. It honestly was a good refresher, even though I was hoping just to kind of get away from that. But now let's quickly go through the other episodes. Now with episode 2, we start off with another flashback to her relatives. Again, not making much sense. They don't really explain it at all. They kind of just jump back into the series, waiting for the finale where they're going to explain it. But in this episode, Maya's whole plan is to sabotage a Fisk shipping vehicle or a train that is shipping supplies from Oklahoma to New York to Wilson Fisk, and she plans to sabotage it. Now that she's killed Kingpin, she can sabotage his entire operation, or what's left of him. And also they kind of make it a big reveal that Kingpin is still alive, even though we 100% knew he was coming back. So leaving a cliffhanger of the episode where you see, oh my gosh, Kingpin's still alive, isn't shocking at all in my opinion. The big strong suit from this episode and the other episodes is the family dynamics, actually getting to know these characters, which pay off later on in the finale in the last couple episodes. Again, we're sort of getting tidbits of information of Maya's past, her ancestry, and where her powers will come from. But we also have Maya's uncle who was working for Wilson Fisk, and she sabotages his shipment, and it kind of divides them a little bit, and she's bringing all the trouble from New York to Oklahoma. Episode 3, we start off with another flashback. This time it is a different sort of western, spaghetti western movie style opening, and I really did like this, but again, very confused. We're 3 episodes in out of 5, and after this sequence, I'm still very lost on where Maya's powers come from, what this means, how it connects. I don't really have any way of following the breadcrumb trail because all of these stories have been kind of different, but still very entertaining. I really enjoyed it. This show felt more TV than any of the other Marvel series in my opinion, and I think releasing all the episodes at once was a good idea for this. Now episode 3 was probably one of my favorite episodes. We have this big fight at a skating rink where Fisk is planning to come and capture Maya. They found out that she's there, so we see this big fight at the skating rink, and it's very brutal and kind of earns the mature rating that it has. One of the big deals about Echo was the fact that it was going to have a mature rating, and I think they could have gone a little bit further with this, but it was nice seeing a little bit of a hard edge to the Marvel universe. She finally meets up with her cousin again. She gets resolution with that, with her grandfather, and at the end of this episode, Wilson Fisk comes to Oklahoma. Again, another Kingpin reveal cliffhanger episode. Didn't really matter because I'm just gonna go watch the next episode anyway. But yeah, it's also in the 4th episode where we see Maya maybe realizes that she does have some sort of power. But again, that's it. Wait for the finale. Now, while episode 4 was very light on the action, it was very heavy on the narrative and explaining things that were set up on the 1st episode, 2nd episode, and so on and so forth. And was the one I was really hoping would give me some explanation as to her past, her ancestors, what her powers are, and more content with Wilson Fisk. I know he's not the main center of this show, but he's a very important supporting character that has a lot to do with her past and why she is the way that she is. And we get that here. We see flashbacks with Maya and Wilson. He was taking care of her, again, being that uncle figure. And as we transition into the present day, we realize Wilson Fisk, Kingpin, just wants his daughter back. And it does make you kind of feel bad for Kingpin if you know his past. You know, he's just really a sad man, and he's still terrible. He's still a criminal, but you understand where he's coming from, kind of. And of course, Vincent D'Onofrio just kills it as Kingpin, as always. There's some really great moments here. It's in this episode we finally get to learn more about Echo's potential powers. We find out that her relatives, her ancestors, were the first Choctaw people who emerged from the underground and became human beings, and the lineage of those people to her have all been connected, and all of the people that we've been seeing in these visions were people from her past, were her ancestors, and they're now sort of echoing through her. And this part isn't really explained in the 4th episode, but it is in the finale. Now you go back and watch it and you realize what they're setting up. Just at the time, it's a little confusing. Now, Wilson wants Maya to come back to New York with him. He just wants his daughter back. He offers her a gift, and this gift is the hammer that Wilson used to kill his father in the Daredevil show. Once again, confirming that this show is canon to the MCU. Again, if you haven't watched Daredevil, go watch it. It is the best now official MCU show. So now she has to make a choice to go back to New York or stay here with the family that she's been sort of estranged from. And of course, she's not going to go back to New York because this man killed her father, and Wilson is not happy about that. And we get to the finale, very strong, until the very end. Wilson captures both Maya's cousin and grandma and sort of holds them for ransom, saying, hey, let them go if you come with me back to New York. And also, I need to let it be known, I'm skipping over lots of side character and sort of supporting cast things. So if you want to know more about that stuff, go watch the show. It's very short, only 5 episodes. And yeah, just thought I'd throw that out there. So near the end of this finale, we get my favorite scene of the show. Maya finally dons the name Echo in a way that's more symbolic than it is just having the name. She gets the powers of her ancestors that echo through her, and she's able to echo her power onto her family members so she can take out the bad guys and her family members can take out the bad guys using her power. Very, very cool. I really enjoyed this, and I think that is a very unique power for a new MCU character to have that actually makes you interested and care about the character at the same time. Making the show more traditional television was a great choice, even having only 5 episodes. By the finale, I cared about these characters and I wanted to see more of them and more action sequences like in the finale. So Maya takes out Fisk's guys with the help of her family being echoed through her powers, and then she tries to get into Fisk's mind. And we get into Fisk's mind and we see the moment where Fisk decides to take out his father from the Daredevil show. We see the white wall cracked, which is a callback to the rabbit in a snowstorm painting that Fisk buys from Vanessa in season 1 of Daredevil. And Maya is trying to get Fisk to let go of this pain, let go of your past and become something more. And Fisk snaps out of it and leaves in sort of a frustrated sort of confusion and fear. And then the episode ends. This was almost perfect for me. I think the editing was a little bit off here because there was so much tension. Having Maya finally get into Fisk's head and overpowering him in a mental way was so cool, and they almost nailed it. I just think when she finally got through to him and he said no and backed out, they just cut to him getting in a vehicle and leaving. There's no struggle. Of course, Maya did take out all the guys, but he just leaves kind of scared and cowardly. And I'm not saying that's not called for in this moment, but it just felt weird watching it because of probably the editing. It's so fast. There's no time to really let Wilson think about what he just saw. He kind of just screams at her, "What did you do?" And at the same time is running away. We do get an amazing post-credits scene that sets up the events of Spider-Man 4 and possibly Daredevil Born Again, and possibly the return of all of the Defenders. We see Wilson Fisk watching the TV as he's leaving Oklahoma. He's probably going to be running for mayor, and if he's going to be doing that, most likely he's gonna win. That's very exciting. I'm gonna do a whole video on that post-credit scene alone, but overall, let me just give you the pluses and minuses of Echo and my overall thoughts. Positive, characters, really cool. Love the family members. Wilson Fisk looks terrifying with that new eye patch sort of scar on his eye from the injury that Maya gave him. Maya, very cool. Started off very cold, but I actually really like her character by the end of the show. The fight sequences, something that Marvel has needed to nail for a little while now, and they definitely nailed it with a more mature rating. I want to see more. Negatives. Pacing. I think that was the big issue that I had. There were some moments that were really engaging, and then 2 minutes later, it's slowed down to a crawl and I'm bored. Not to say the characters are boring or I hate the characters, but some moments just drag on way too long, thus also causing some confusion in terms of storyline and explaining her powers and her family and stuff like that. Lastly, one that I kind of touched on a little bit earlier, it's only 5 episodes. I think there's a whole episode or 2 that may have been cut from this. Definitely seems like there's some points where things are missing, but other than that, I give this a solid ranking. I think it is decent. I think it is definitely not bad. And it's also something where the 5 episode aspect of it is a good thing because, well, it's not that long to get through. I think it's very enjoyable for the fight scenes. I think it's very enjoyable for the character dynamics between Fisk and Maya and her family, but I think people wanted it to be just a little bit more. Overall, very good. It was solid. I enjoyed it. Not my favorite thing ever. Not something I plan on going back to super soon, but would I recommend it? Look, if you're an MCU fan, you gotta watch it. Guys, let me know down below what you thought about this season. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Give me your thoughts. I love reading them. I most likely will respond, and I will see you all very soon.